Welcome to Clearly Conveying, where we're going to continue talking about belt tracking. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, great to be with you, Russel.
Thank you. Hey, last time we talked about belt tracking, there was plenty to talk about.
You know, we know there's a lot of issues out there that can contribute or cause a belt to mistrack. When you go on site, Russel, how do you approach a belt tracking issue? Like, where do you get started, and what are some of the things that you look for when you're trying to find the root cause of a tracking issue?
One thing, I walk the conveyor and I start seeing where the belt wanders. You know, goes to the right, goes to the left. I look both carry and return. I check both sides, and I start trying to determine, okay, on this section is going on the right.
Does it make a difference of where you get started? Like, do you start at the head drive or do you start at the tail pulley? Typically, where do you get started?
Well, I always try just to make it easier on the on me. You know, if you go on return, sometimes it's a lot easier just to inspect, just going under.
So you might start at the tail if it's an incline conveyor and walk towards the head and analyze the...
Well, I try to actually go the other way. I try to, I try just to go how the belt feeds on, right? I mean, so I start at the head and I go towards the tail, and I do that just, I mean, I don't know.
Because that's the direction of the belt travel.
And if I can help a situation in which we can just get the return aligned, we for certain will assure that the belt is going in the center, you know, and is ready to receive material, and then move on.
I've also seen pulleys being misaligned or skewed, like take-up bend pulleys, as the belt's coming into a gravity take-up. Okay. A lot of time, maintenance personnel or end users will use the pulley to help make sure the belt is tracking in the center as it goes into the take-up, to ensure that the belt's not tracking off as it goes through the take-up. But here's another one that end users don't often think of, and that is wear on the pulley lagging, for example, right? And so one of the things that I check if the belt is tracking off at one of the conveyor pulleys is one of the first things I check is the wear on the pulley lagging. So to kind of dive into that a little bit, we all know the effects of crown on conveyor pulleys. You know, a crown face pulley will help track the belt.
Towards the center.
Right.
Right.
And that's because the diameter in the middle of the pulley is larger than the diameter on each end of the pulley. And what I've seen happen is, you know, conveyor belts that track in the center for a long period of time, they will wear the lagging down in the center, and they can wear it down enough so that what ends up happening is the diameter in the middle of the pulley is now less than the diameter on each end of the pulley, and we commonly refer to that as a reverse crown. And once you have that situation, the belt will never track in the center of the pulley. It will always want to track to the left or to the right because that's where the large diameter is. Wow. And that's one that it's a difficult one for customers to figure out, because when you go and you look at your pulley, it looks like you have good lagging because you're looking at the thickness out on the ends.
On the sides, right.
And you don't know and can't measure very easily what is the thickness of the lagging in the center of the pulley. Okay. So that's one of the things that the field engineers will also check. So what about if you're walking a conveyor and the belt's tracking off just in the middle of the conveyor? What do you think might be contributing to that? Let's just say on the troughing side, on the carrying side of the belt.
One that comes to my mind, again, something that people probably just miss all the time, especially when you're seeing the conveyor every day, over and over. But I remember this case in which I was walking the conveyor, and I started noticing the same thing you were saying. You know, towards the middle, on the carry side, the belt was kind of like going off on one side, and I started just noticing also that on the foot pads of the idler frames, some of them were missing one bolt or two bolts, and I was thinking, why would they be missing bolts? But you know, I have been helping, you know, sometimes in the shop and all that, and I mean, my hands are flimsy sometimes, and I drop stuff like that. But when you're on a conveyor and you're high on the air and you drop that bolt or that nut or washer, you don't have extra additional. So I can see how just people just leave it that way. But that can start causing as the conveyor starts running and the belt starts riding on those idlers, that belt will always come and knock them off a little bit, little by little, and eventually they might start getting screwed, right? I mean, getting off of the center line of the conveyor, and it's like a bicycle guide right there. You just turn around, and then the belt starts just tracking towards, well, one side or the other one.
Well, and there's, as we mentioned, a number of things that can cause belt tracking issues. Some of the other things that I would like to mention is things that oftentimes get looked over. But if a belt is not setting down in the trough, you know, like on the carrying side, if there's a vertical curve in the conveyor and the belt is lifting up out of the trough, if the belt is not fully engaged or touching the troughing idlers very well, then the belt's going to be free to just wander and do whatever. And so I've seen situations where that has had a major effect on the tracking. So in my experience, when I'm helping with a belt tracking issue, like you, I find out where the belt tracking is most identifiable, and then I start a process of elimination of root causes, you know, at that point. So, for example, if a belt is tracking off at one of the terminal pulleys, like the tail pulley or the head drive or discharge pulley, you know, one of the things that I always check first is the pulley square to the structure, because a lot of times customers will skew pulleys to cause them to track, and then if a conveyor belt is changed, for example, when the pulley's not squared up again, now it's going to cause your new conveyor belt to track off, because a new belt will not track the same way as an old worn belt, for example, right?
Jeff, thank you very much for sharing belt tracking with us. It has been very pleasant. We'll see you all next time. That belt just pretty much just went flying everywhere. Material just
So it caused a lot of damage.
a lot of damage.